great deals at Meijer on the items your family loves. Make shop the Meijer app.
Run a business and not thinking about podcasting? Think again. Get started. That's 844-844-iHeart.
Why did I get cancer?
How long?
Health.com/fearlessly.
In 2012, a state hospital broke ground on their new facility in Jackson, America's #1 podcast network, iHeart. Follow Under Yazoo Clay and start listening on the free iHeartRadio app today.
Over 15 years ago, I attended a county commission meeting in Newport. And part of the reason I was there was at the request of a guy I knew named Charlie Coleman. He also would get involved in local politics in Northern Kentucky. But anyway, he is here in the studio to talk about this new book that he has compiled called Northern Kentucky Sports Legends of the 1950s. And all of the names are there. Just an incredible list of fantastic athletes who have been a part of the fabric of high school and college sports in Northern Kentucky. Many of these names still resonate, and people still know who they are even some 70 years later. But Charlie always had a love for that. He was a coach. In fact, they called him Coach at Bellevue. I still call him Coach. But the reason we got together at the time, Charlie, was because you had... You'd heard me on the radio, and you knew basically what my politics were like, essentially. And I was a guy who loves freedom and liberty. And in Newport, in the Campbell County at the time, they were debating whether to end public cigarette smoking in public places, which, of course, it ended in Ohio already, and the push is on. And now individual cities in Campbell County have decided they're going non-smoking. By edict in Bellevue and Dayton and most areas of Covington. But Newport is still kind of like an oasis of liberty if the owner of an establishment deems that his customers don't mind the smoke. And for me, it's always been a personal choice kind of thing, not a public health thing, in that you have the choice to go into any establishment you want. No one forces you to go into a bar, for example.
Free markets.
And you're not a cigarette smoker.
I am not. You never have been.
I was at the time, but that wasn't the reason that I got up and spoke at the meeting in front of, and we got it put down in Campbell County at the time.
Yeah, actually it had been passed, but it had not been implemented at the time. And
but they opened it up for public comment, and we sure as heck commented.
We sure did, and got it repealed before it ever went into effect. So it was a great example of democracy in action, and liberty-loving Campbell Countyans came to the forefront, you included, and we got that repealed so a business owner can make his or her own decision.
Yeah, and nobody is for it. There were like 3,000 some business owners who had signed a petition against this new regulation, and most of them were non-smoking by choice.
By choice.
It wasn't about that. It was about, again, individual liberty for each particular property owner, property owners' rights and customers' rights met in the middle in a great show, as you said, of true democracy in action. So it was a nice. So that's the way we met. And then you ran for office and was elected. What was that position?
I was county commissioner,
from
one of the 3 districts. There are 3 county commissioners and a judge executive in Campbell County.
All right. And then you got about to doing what you have done pretty much your entire life, and that is this is the true definition of athleticism. It's a enthusiasm for athletics, and you have always had that from your times as a player to your time as a coach. When did you play, and what sports did you play?
I played football at Newport High School, Newport Public High School, class of 1966, and I'm here to admit to everyone listening
to the world,
to the nation station here, that I was not a very good player. I was cannon fodder for the better players, but I did have a love for it. And especially when I went away to college, down to Eastern Kentucky University, they had a good football program. I'd go watch them practice. and thought, this is what I want to do. I want to coach football.
Right.
And was able to fulfill that dream.
What was your first coaching job?
My first coaching job was back in Newport at one of the elementary schools.
Okay.
Dora Cumming, the old Park Avenue school. So I started with 5th and 6th graders.
You're coaching them playing football.
Yeah.
5th and 6th grade.
Yeah, 5th and 6th grade, and then ended up crossing the creek. It was a creek at that time, over to Bellevue to further my career and coach high school football, and eventually became the head coach at Bellevue High School and had a great career. I have the utmost respect and love for the community of Bellevue and what they did for me and my family.
You also have an enduring love and respect for the athletes that came through Northern Kentucky specifically.
Absolutely.
And in this book, you detail everything. And Seg was in here when you guys came in. Charlie's here with his wife, Chi-Chi, who's marvelous, but she won't talk on the microphones. But anyway, the first thing that Seg looked at was the first chapter, Bill Aker, Mr. Baseball. And Seg goes, now that was a player, man. He was everything back then. Tell me a little bit about Bill Aker.
Bill Aker is a graduate of Covington Holmes High School in the late 50s, was an outstanding baseball player. He was going to sign with the Reds, but had some type of accident, and it curtailed that career, actually ended that career. And he got in the newspaper business, worked for the Cincinnati Enquirer, and when Northern Kentucky State College was established in the late 60s,
What we know now as
NKU, Dr. James Claypool was given the task to start an athletic program. And the first program he started was baseball. And he asked Bill Aker if he would like to be the coach. And there were times, I understand, Bill had to go through the student center and get players for that afternoon game. But Bill ended up winning over 800 games.
Wow.
Several conference championships. Several players went on to be professional baseball players. Pitching coach for the Milwaukee Brewers now. I can't think of his name, but played for Bill at NKU. So Bill, again, a Holmes graduate, Northern Kentucky guy, was an outstanding player, but became even a better coach.
A lot of people don't know about the great career of Stan Arnzen after he left high school. And where'd Stan play?
He played at Newport High School and went to Moorhead State Teachers College, and was signed by the Cleveland Indians in baseball, and was actually player of the year in their minor league system.
Now, he also played basketball, right?
He did, and was a freshman starter on a regional championship basketball team in the late 30s. But in 1949 or 48, he became head basketball coach at Newport High School and had an outstanding career, won 5 regional championships and I think over 400 games, was a real innovator. They used zone presses before anybody used zone presses. Colorful coach. Newport wore red gym shoes. They had knee socks, red knee guards, which was unheard of at the time. And before the game, the starting 5 would lay down, face down on the floor.
What?
Yeah, with their heads together in a circle.
Right.
And they would say the Lord's Prayer. And the cheerleaders...
That could never happen today, could it?
The cheerleaders would gather around them and spell out Wildcats. And so that was Stan Arnzen, a great coach, a great innovator.
And kind of a P.T. Barnum of sorts. He was a pretty good showman, wasn't he?
I can remember a game where he could get on the officials, and
right.
He was getting on the officials, and he jumped up and said something. Can't remember where Newport was playing. They were just getting ready to tee him up, and he was stomping his feet. And he just kept stomping and stomping until he went out into the lobby and he bought a Coke, and then he came back in right as he
in the middle of a game.
In the middle of the game,
he stomps out, goes to get a Coke at the consent, and just comes back and sits on the bench.
Sits on the bench. Yeah,
that's beautiful. What a great, more great stories in this book, and two people that anyone, even if you say are much younger, you would know some of these names just because of their incredible careers after they left Northern Kentucky sports. Some of them never left Northern Kentucky, like Senator and Hall of Famer Jim Bunning.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Jim Bunning.
Well, he went to high school at St. X in Cincinnati, but he was raised in Southgate. I think it's where you live.
Yeah.
In Southgate, went to St. Therese Elementary School. Yeah. And he was quite an athlete in all sports, as most of these guys are, and one girl here we'll talk about. But Jim Bunning went to Xavier University also on a basketball scholarship originally, but played baseball and was discovered by the Detroit Tigers. Mm-hmm. And early in his minor league career, he didn't have a lot of success. And they had changed his arm angle. And I don't know, 3 or 4 years into his career, he himself dropped his arm angle where he was more comfortable, and from then he became a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So
the side armor who became a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And here's a name that everybody who is familiar with UC basketball lore and then the NBA and ABA will know the name Tom Thacker.
Tom Thacker, one of the greats. Nobody could write a book about Northern Kentucky athletics without mentioning Tom Thacker. Played at William Grant, some called Lincoln Grant. It was the all-black school at the time during segregation. But he is the only person ever to win an NCAA championship at the University.
With the UC Bearcats.
UC Bearcats. And then in the NBA with the Indiana Pacers, the ABA, excuse me.
ABA.
And then the NBA with the Boston Celtics.
The only guy.
Only guy.
To win championships with all of those.
All of those. And here he's a Northern Kentucky guy and a real gentleman. He used to attend our Northern Kentucky Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame meetings. And he would bring Jim Brock, his coach, and George Wilson, who had played at UC, would come. And just a real gentleman.
Anybody who knows anything about football knows the name Homer Rice. He's a legendary coach, and he came right out of, Bellevue?
Yeah, well, he was born in Bellevue, yeah. His father was a minister, and at a young age, they moved down to eastern Kentucky, but didn't stay very long, came back and settled in Fort Thomas. And Homer Rice, we could do a whole show on Homer Rice.
No doubt.
He was really the father of the triple option offense. And some people know that, but not a lot of people. And, of course, he became head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. And when he passed, which was only a year or so ago, I think maybe a year ago, he was still teaching a class at Georgia Tech on leadership fitness, which he wrote a book, which I have, called Leadership Fitness, that is used now, Gary Jeff, not just at Georgia Tech, but all across the nation. Colleges use that book in their curriculum.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And what about the young lady you were talking about that's featured in this book?
Pat Scott. What a tremendous individual. All of our listeners, I think, remember the movie A League of Their Own with Tom Hanks and so on. She played in that league, and she went to St. Henry High School out in Erlanger. Her dad had read in the paper, probably a local paper, that there were going to be tryouts for the Women's Professional Baseball League in Chicago. So he took Pat, and she made it and was assigned to the Sally's was the nickname. I forgot the city. Most of those cities were in Illinois at the time.
Right.
And
there were the Rockford Peaches.
Her mother got sick, so she had to come home, and she went back and then had her career with the Fort Wayne Daisies as a pitcher. And her uniform is up at the Behringer Crawford Museum there in Devou Park. She was also an outstanding artist.
Really?
Wood carvings. Tremendous artist. But just a real lady she told me that movie was pretty accurate.
Really?
As well. They were well supervised. They were taught how to be a lady, and they couldn't be out after a certain time at night. And, Northern Kentucky lady, Pat Scott.
Where can people get the book, Charlie? Northern Kentucky Sports Legends of the 1950s.
Not in any bookstores, but if you could email me at nksportslegends@gmail.com.
nksportslegends@gmail.com.
And I will be in touch with you, and I will even bring it to you.
Real quickly, just ahead of Reds baseball, Bill in Fort Thomas has a question. If you got a question for the coach or a comment, go ahead and make it, sir.
Hey, Gary Jeff.
Yeah, Bill, go ahead.
This is George's master. You remember me, don't you?
I do remember you, Bill, yes.
I'm going to tell you, the guy that's with you, they don't get any better than him, okay? And I just wanted to let everyone know, I bought the 100th edition from Charlie just the other day. And Charlie, good luck to you, and you're just a great guy, and it's a pleasure to be part of the organization I'm with you.
Well,
thank you very much.
Bill is part of the Northern Kentucky Sports Hall of Fame on the board of directors.
Right.
And he actually bought the 100th. I got his picture, he and I together. And Coach Kenny Shields actually bought 101.
I love Coach Shields.
Yeah.
There's so many people that do. Listen, Charlie, thank you. This is a real pleasure, and the book's a real treasure for anybody who loves sports, especially local sports. Northern Kentucky Sports Legends of the 1950s, nksportslegends@gmail.com if you'd like to find a copy of that. Reds baseball in Arizona coming right up after this on 700 WLW.